You're listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more.
Hey, what up, man? This is your boy, Al Mega. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders podcast. And today, we have an amazing creator. He's an author of an epic fantasy book series. That's right, folks. Doing things a little different. Step outside of comic books for a bit because you guys got to read some books too, all right? This is a dope book. It's called the Warminster series, all right? And we're going to talk about these dope 3 books right here. Ooh, yeah, don't be jealous, folks. My man sent them on over. Let me introduce this amazing superstar of a writer right here. Well, the one, the only Mr. J.V. Hilliard. Wepa, how you doing?
Well, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to our talk.
Absolutely. No, thanks for coming on and to chit chat about this dope book series. And thanks for the generosity. And not just that, folks. Look how cool he was. Not just that. Kaboom! They even signed. Yeah, man. Like, who needs to go to a con, bro? My man who took
this guy does. That's where my fans are, man.
And we're gonna talk about that exactly. Where you're gonna be going at and all right. Before the show ends. But to get started, for those that are just unfamiliar, JV, for those that just happen to be in, a big shout out to Daniel. Thanks for tuning in. Let folks know a little bit about yourself. Where are you originally from? And my favorite question ever: what is the first thing in fandom that you ever fell in love with?
Yeah, so I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania originally. Moved away here for a while, worked as a lobbyist in DC as a defense and technology lobbyist, and then moved back home.
My first lobbyist.
Yeah. So I do a lot of defense work on the tech side. What's that?
That must have been an epic adventure back then.
It was. That's one way of putting it, right? So did that for a while, and then COVID happened, and it brought me to a point where everything was shut down for almost 2 years.
No more lobbies.
No more lobbyists. So, so what we did was, my wife wagged her finger at me and said, "Look, man, you're not going to sit around driving me nuts with all the energy you've got." She said, "Go do something." And writing a book was always on my bucket list to do. So I wrote an epic fantasy series, and I thought there was going to be a single book at the time. And, by the time I got a publisher, I learned that something that I should have known in the back of my head as a fantasy fan my entire life is that, fantasy books are not single standalone books. They're series. And if I wanted to be published by her, I needed to have a series. So we put together a 3-book series, which became a 4-book series, last of which comes out here right around the holidays. So getting close to the launch of book 4, and I'll get that to you when it's done and it's out too, by the way.
Stuff for folks, not just these 3, but 4. Ooh.
You got it, man. You got it. So, but to get back to your original question, the thing that really brought me into fandom was The Hobbit. When I was 10 years old, I was sitting in my English class, and at the end of the year, my English teacher had fallen ill and took a medical sabbatical. And somehow, some way, the permanent substitute that came in got permission from our principal to read us The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit as the last month's worth of curriculum. And that was it. I was in love. It had knights and dragons and all the kind of things that come along with fantasy. And, J.R.R. Tolkien is sort of the granddaddy of them all, right? He's the guy when it comes to fantasy stuff that everybody else aspires to be. And so for me, that was my introduction into it. But I was always a nerd. I mean, I'm a comic book guy. These are being turned into a graphic novel series. It's also becoming a video game, things we could talk about in a minute or two. And that all came from that fatalistic moment where it was like, hey, you've got a chance to listen to what The Hobbit's all about. And I fell in love with it. And all of a sudden I was like, one of these days I'm going to write that book. And now that book's becoming a series, a graphic novel, and a video game. So I'm excited about it.
So thanks to wifey on that for giving me that nudge. You know what I mean? That's awesome when you have someone that supports on that level. That's fantastic. Oh, yeah. I get it, man. It's either listen, I don't want to kick you out, so put your energy elsewhere.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like I was going to drive her nuts. She was like literally like, we're stuck here together for a couple of months. At the time, we didn't know how long it was going to be. And she's like, just do something or else you're
Go to the room somewhere and type, play a game, play dance.
That's exactly right. So I sat down, I started pounding away, and then that just became a habit.
All right. So I need to know here, man. Apparently this Warminster series is quite the ambitious project, right? 4-book series and all. So, wifey told you to create a series. You said you were a fan of this, but what was the inspirations? Where were the seeds? Is this something that always lied within you, or when wifey gave you that finger wagging, you said, "Oh, the universe," that was like a magic wand, and it just appeared in your head.
Yeah, it wasn't the magic wand, but it was the directive to do it. Like I had always talked about doing it, and it was just a matter of now I had the time, right? And so she's like, go and do something, and that's what I ended up throwing myself into. But the story itself really was seeded by years of Dungeons and Dragons play. I'm a nerd.
Oh, you're a D&D guy.
I'm a D&D guy. I'm a big Comic-Con guy. I've never done like the live action role playing, but I respect that. I know people that do cosplay and LARPing and stuff like that. And it's a lot of fun.
You're not there yet.
No, it's just not. I'm not much of an actor. Like that for me would be, I'm more of the guy that sits behind the scenes and types. I'll put the story together, but don't put me on a stage somewhere. That's just not what I do.
When this series is going to be LARP, I think you're going to be the head of that. Don't you worry.
Well, I'll tell you what. I am impressed. I've got somebody who came to me at my last con and said that she wanted to do TikTok videos about some of my more popular characters in cosplay, and she's got a group that's going to do it and put it together, and we're going to kind of cross promote it for their group and my stuff. And that stuff is humbling, man. When someone gives you fan art or wants to write fan fiction or, comes like literally pays money to come and see you at a con, to listen to you talk, to meet you, to buy your books, and then tell you what they like and don't like, that's dedication, man. And you got to respect that. And it is truly, truly humbling for me. So, for me, it was something that, if there was a silver lining in COVID, it was it. I was able to put this together and knock it out. And the first book's now an Amazon bestseller, and I'm hoping the third, fourth, and others are coming along too, man. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Talk about that. That first book in the series is The Last Keeper. Can you give our listeners and viewers a brief overview of the story and then the main characters, that every cosplayer is dying to.
Yeah. So, the story is a bit of a hero's journey meets coming of age story, right? So the main character in the novels is a kid named Damus Alaric. He's not a kid. He's like a 20-year-old guy. But, he has these visions that allow him to see into the future, and he only has them when he's sleeping, and they come to him in the form of night terrors. So he doesn't know how to control them, and he's sent away to a school where these other seers and oracles are to learn how to harness his powers to better serve, the realm. But when he gets there, these dreams become so intense and they become so specific. He starts to see the return of a fallen keeper. These, the keepers are the sect that he belongs to, and this man is coming to take revenge, and he's the only one that sees him coming. All of these learned scholars and all of these practiced seers, nobody sees this guy coming except he does. And he sees him every night, and every night in his recurring nightmare, the fallen keeper gets closer and closer, and he knows that it's coming, and he can't figure out why he's the only one to see it. And that's why it's called The Last Keeper. And so it's Damus's story about how he harnesses his powers and matures, and then leads his merry band of adventurers against the return of the Great Taurus the Mad, who is the villain in the novels.
And talking about that cover art, woo, sexy, man. That.
I'll tell you what, I can't take any credit for it. That stuff, that's my illustrator meets a lot of people that looked at it. My wife likes the guy because she thinks he's hot, but that's supposed to be Damus with his white eyes. Damus as a character was born blind. Okay. And he was given this power of sight by a passing sort of this mysterious wizard who touched his eyes, and he was then able to see. But with his sight came this magical sight that he sees the future with. And so there's a mystery behind that that you kind of have to solve as you kind of go through it. And there's a Luke, I am your father moment for all of our Star Wars nerds out there that are listening and watching. That's part of that too. And so when he figures out where he got the sight from, it really helps him develop the strategy to defeat the big bad evil guy. But the cover I think was really sharp. I get a lot of compliments on the covers, and frankly the covers for the series. And the last one I didn't send it because I'm not allowed to reveal the cover just yet. That's part of the social media strategy, but it's going to look eerily similar to the others. And, I think it's going to look really sexy on a bookshelf in a box set somewhere.
Listen, man, they look fantastic. Like I said, folks, I have them here. This is the second book now. All right. So just to finish on the first book. So how much do we learn about our main protagonist here and antagonist in this first book?
Yep. Well, you learn a lot of Daemus's backstory. You get to learn that he was born blind. You know that he was of a noble birth, and that this affliction that he had when he was given this sight. His parents thought, this is great, he's now able to see, but the curse that came along with it was that he's now seeing the future, right? And seeing things he shouldn't see. And so for them, they looked at it as sort of like Rudolph's red nose. Like they didn't get it at first. They didn't know that it was actually a blessing in disguise. They looked at it as a curse, a bane upon their house. And so he was sent away, to learn about it. And so you learn about him as a maturing man, beyond young adult. He's a new adult, right? And it's how he's able to harness those things, and how he learns from the people around him and those that are sacrificing for him to become the person he needs to become to defeat the big bad evil guy, right? And so the big boss in this case is Grey Taurus the Mad, and he was the head of their sect at one point and violated the canons. It's almost like the 10 commandments. He violated the first commandment over all, which was thou shalt not use your powers of sight to your own benefit. And that's how he got cursed. And so in book 1, you learn about him being cursed in the prologue. And it's a pretty vicious, dark fantasy prologue. It's not for the faint of heart. It's a pretty scary thing. And then you learn about Daemus.
Made me feel like he's Sinestro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you nailed it. So like you get this immediately by reading the prologue in chapter 1, you're set down your path. And then there's a few other main characters that are in it too that play a bigger part, but it's really the struggle in the 4-book series. Really the heart of the struggle is Daemus versus Grey Taurus, and and it's those two that eventually face off in the final novel, and what happens there as part of it. So it's I'm hoping that people enjoy it. I mean, I think the book 1 has been very widely accepted, and as I mentioned earlier, is now being translated into both a graphic novel for those that are coming to Comic Crusaders and want to get their comic fix in, or gamers that are watching. This is going to become an augmented reality and virtual reality game in the 2025 timeframe. So I'm working on that as we speak.
Bro, I'm loving it. All right, so we got that book going out, but again, you said the 4th one is coming, which means, folks, we have 2 more books we could chat about a little bit. So Vorodin's Lair, the second installment in the series. So what can you tease us with here without giving away too much, so folks could pick up this beautiful book right here? Listen, I know, folks, you want to see it closer? I got you. You don't think I do? Come on now, it's right here. Look at this awesome looking cover. If my finger would scroll fast enough, kaboom! There we go. So talk about that one right there. We're on there, and look at, again, wonderful art. Like, yo, I mean, if this is what you give me on a cover, I cannot wait to see what you give me in a graphic novel. It's going to probably be the stuff ever.
That's the scary part, man. It's taking what is an epic fantasy that has 500,000 words in 4 books and boiling that down into a comic book.
Jeez.
That is hard, man, because you get one word, you get one sentence in each of those frames. You get 8 frames a page, maybe, right? And you try to stretch that out. But Vorodin's Lair is the continuation of the story, right? It's kind of the Empire Strikes Back, where in book 1, the cast of adventurers comes together to help Daemus, frankly, just survive. And he's able to do that, and people then recognize him as sort of the last keeper. Voradin's Lair is the continuation of that quest. It's them coming together. The woman on the cover is Princess Adeline Elspeth. She's a vermilion elf. You can see by her ears and her hair, the red in her hair makes her vermilion, her red eyes and things. And she's there to support Daemus. And she, and Daemus go to the city of Abacus to discover what Voradin's Lairs is and what secrets lie within, so that they can use that to defeat Great Taurus the Mad. And that's really, them going and figuring out how to defeat this guy who has the world in chaos. And that's really what it is.
Stories continues from the first book. He's still a nutcase that's involved in the narrative.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He's the guy that is cursed, and it's if there was a Darth Vader in this, it's him. If there was a Sauron in it, it's him. He's the cause of the realm's issues, and it's because he's coming back. He doesn't feel that he should be blamed for what he did, and his gods cursed him basically as a result of him using his knowledge, his gift, in a way he shouldn't have. And he's coming back to take revenge, and he's doing some things, and there are some sub villains that he recruits to help him. What my most popular character in all the novels is my assassin, this guy named Imcanus Druwaith, who's everybody's supposed to hate him, but they don't. They love him, and he's kind of like I liken him. I had one fan tell me he's your Boba Fett. It's like everybody's like, oh, like he's not a main character, but he's main enough that everybody can't wait to read what he does because it's so devilishly evil. Like, what does he do next? And that's a lot of fun to sit back and kind of watch that from the sidelines and seeing. I'm telling you, you would think that people would come up and I like Daemus, I like Ritter, I like Adeline. No. 1 out of 2, at least 1 out of 2 comes up and says, I love Imcanus. He is such a badass. And so I'm glad to see he really takes a role in book 2 and is a big part of book 3, which I think everyone's.
Oh, nice. Oh, book 3. Segueing, my man is segueing. Book 3, baby. Right here. Let's get into that one right here. The Trillius Gambit. This is the latest edition you can get on the shelves right now, very now, because book 4 is forthcoming. But this is the latest one. So, and again, gorgeous cover, as you could tell, folks. But again, look, and I have it too. Ooh, that's right. Look how glossy that thing is. Sexy. So talk about that. And I'm digging. This is a tattoo. Let me tell you. This cover is a back tattoo.
Right. Yeah. It could be, man. I sell some shirts with it on. People like it. They like that amethyst color and the skull and Daemus on the front with the fire in his hands. It really, it's the transitional piece where you get a lot of big battles in this book. If you're a fan of epic fantasy battles, this is the book for you. You get this giant war that happens between Prince Montgomery and Baron von Lormark, and the two families finally meet on the battlefield, and you're not going to believe how it ends. I'm really excited about that. But then you also see this local struggle, this duel that's going on between Adeline and Ritter and Imcanus Druwaith. It gets really personal. You get to see the behind the scenes, in the romance that goes through it. The real central romance is between Ritter and Adeline, and it finally kind of comes together. Where it's a slow burn, and then they finally make a decision to be with one another, even though their societies forbid it. That it's that forbidden love kind of trope that everybody likes. And so I get a lot of fans, loving that. And I also, and then the struggle between them and Imcanus Druwaith, and the two of those fighting, it gets really personal in this book, and it kind of culminates into one last duel between the three of them. And I'm not going to tell you how it ends, but put it this way, my voiceover actor and my editor both said this is the best of the three. So, and I can't wait for them to get done with 4 and get on with that. So we're getting there, man.
I cannot wait. All right. So being that you're a D&D player, that means that your mind must be explosive. So can you tell us a bit about the magic system in the series and how magic is used and how it affects the world and the characters overall? Or I mean,
Sure can.
does every character have vision or not? I mean, I'm pretty sure they have different power sets, right?
That's right. So this is it's a lot like what I would describe as an adaptation of what you've seen in many role-playing games. Dungeons and Dragons being, sort of central piece of all RPG games, as being the first and the most popular. But what I've done is I built a magic system around that. And part of the magic system is a learned magic system. You can go and learn to harness the powers, and not everybody can. But you can go and learn that in the same way a Dungeons and Dragons wizard learns it. They study. It's part of a mantra that they have adhered to, and it's a dedication that they've given to a way of life. So Adeline's character, even though she's a princess, she's also a sorceress. In that respect. And then there are powers that are derived from praying to the ancients. And the ancients is my term for gods. So I have a pantheon of gods in this realm. The one that Damus venerates is Arud, who is the god of knowledge. And Arud is sexless because knowledge doesn't have a sex. It's not neither male or female. And so it's almost like it's a spirit. It doesn't embody anything. And so it touches those that it wants to imbue with that ability, and you can pray and learn how to harness them. And then there are others that you can pray to. For example, the goddess of death is known as Threnody, and some, like the Moor Bog, which is a very evil cult that gets involved in the later books. They pray to her for powers, and she brings them gifts in the form of that magic. So some of it is learned magic, places where you would go to a wizardly school like a Harry Potter Hogwarts. And then there is what I would describe as sort of venerated magic that comes from praying to gods that's delivered to you that you don't always have, but it's a magic that you can get based on your dedication to the service of a god or gods in general.
Look, do you hear this guy? Folks, again, look how sexy it's gonna look on yourself. Right? you hearing this? All right. So it's clear mythology and legends play a significant role in the storytelling. So how have any real world myths influence, the lore of Warminster, if at all?
Oh my goodness, yes. I've grabbed stuff from first of all, I have to say that in order to create a world, you have to borrow from one that you're in, right? Like, if I were telling you a story about how Mega got in his car and drove down to the grocery store and bought food and came home, I don't have to explain what you did. Everybody understands it. But in my realm, when I'm creating it, is the sky blue? Do you have one moon or two? Do you have two suns or four or one sun? How long is the night? How long is the day? How do they keep time? How do they spend money? Is there a money system? What does that look like? Yeah. So you're doing all this world building, right? And so for me, that's really at kind of like the heart of your question here. And so I always like to tell people, like, for my realms and things like that, and anybody that's in a fantastical realm, you have to base some form of realism in it. And so I've borrowed from Norse mythology. I've borrowed from Aztec mythology. I've borrowed from Native American mythology. I've borrowed from Asian mythology and a little bit of African mythology. And one of the creatures in the novel is known as the antlered man. I mean, that's basically kind of an adaptation of a Norse myth of a man who was the master of the hunt, who was master of wolves, whose head was, he wore a helmet that had these antlers on it. In this case, he is the antlered man. Like, those antlers are really real. Or I use a Native American myth, which is called the Skinwalker. And one of the characters, one of the villains in the novels, is a skin stealer, which is kind of like a doppelganger, where he changes. He can eat through somebody's skin, devour them from inside, and then take them over and retain their memories. So he knows who they are, and he can play those roles, but he can only play one person at a time. So when he eats that person, he's got to be that person for a while. And so there's literally a monster called a skin stealer, and that came directly from the Skinwalker stuff. Now, the Skinwalker stuff was a little different. It was actually more ghost-like and more, mystical, where this is much more invasive. And, I saw it as sort of like my version of Chupacabra meets Skinwalker, and I smashed them together and created a Skin Stealers. So it's a pretty cool way. And for me, that's it's sort of an homage, a tip of my cap to, a lot of these ancient cultures that had really cool myths that not a lot of people write about. So for me to be able to take them as inspiration and put them into my novels in my own sort of way and twist them into the realm of Warminster, I think it gives them life beyond where they are.
Beautiful. All right. So your book sometimes seems to deal with some complex moral and ethical dilemmas. Can you share some of the insights into maybe the philosophical themes that you explore as well in the series?
Yeah, sure. So, I mentioned the word trope before. And what I mean, for those who may not know what that means, in author speak, is when you're writing a novel or a set of novels, oftentimes you want to write something that people have seen before, they're kind of familiar with, because it's popular and they like that kind of stuff. So sometimes romance or the hero's journey, as I mentioned earlier, are tropes. And some of those themes are also played out. And I use themes that I think everybody can identify with. So I mentioned before this forbidden love. Everybody knows what forbidden love or unrequited love is as part of that. They've either experienced them themselves or they've been around someone when that's happened to them. Dad doesn't want you dating their daughter. Everybody's been there, right? That kind of stuff. Or, I'm of a certain class and you're not, and we can't associate with one another. Everybody's been there at one time too, or it's hard to do, and you're breaking those moral and social barriers as part of that. So, I think the struggle that I've offered is really threefold. The first is forbidden love. At the heart of Adeline and Ritter's struggle together, can these two divergent people come together where you've got this princess meeting this pauper knight? And what makes it worse is Ritter's also a trollborn, and trollborn is my version of a muggle. It's a person of mixed birth. So he's human in one aspect, but he's only half human. His father's human. His mother was a raven elf. These dark elves that live in the forest, and neither society accepts them. So they're called trollborn, and so these folks that are of a mixed race are kind of looked down upon. It's not meant as a slight, but when someone calls you a trollborn, it means you're not of pure blood. And so you've got this lowly knight who's noble in every way, who this princess is falling in love with, but she's forbidden to love him because he's trollborn. And I think that's a common theme that we can all identify with, in our lives too. Secondly, struggle, everybody has, whether it's a health issue or financial issues, I think people understand. And so there's this theme of vengeance where, you don't know the origin story behind Grey Taurus the Mad, but how did he get there? He wasn't born evil. Something happened to him, and why is he right? Yeah. So you get this, this want to find out more about how he ended in the lowly state that he's in, and it's part of that struggle. It's the choices he's made, and can he seek redemption in the same? I'll go back to Darth Vader. I mean, Darth Vader had a chance at redemption, and he took it. Does Grey Taurus take that same chance or take that same option if and when it's presented to him in the novels? And if he does, it's one answer, and if he doesn't, it's another, and those kind of things. So I think redemption, forbidden love, and then this concept of, races coming together and living with one another, and the acceptance of that, I think is being able to tell a story, that is fantastical in its nature, but really gets to the heart of our society today.
Awesome. All right. So a couple more questions here. So, building a fan base for your series, right? How do you engage with your readers and the wider fantasy community? We were talking about cons, a little bit before. So talk about that a bit.
Yeah. So I am shameless, right? I will go to a library. I will go to a bookstore. I do podcasts. I do radio and TV interviews. I go to conventions all the time. So like some of the larger conventions I go to, like Comic-Con or GalaxyCon, they'll have 60,000 people. Some of the bigger Comic-Cons have 250,000 people, at it. It's literally that impactful, and those are the biggest. But I just went to a library about an hour drive from me here in Pittsburgh this past Sunday, 18 people there. Right. And I was there signing books, selling books, telling my story, answering questions and things like that. And that's how I think you engage, coupled with a very targeted social media engagement. And I think that social media is important for two reasons. One is it's free, and every author, whether you are published by the biggest brand in the business or if you're an independent author, it's important to take advantage of that because it's a way to touch people and you don't have to spend money for it. It's really, truly earned media. The second thing is it's global. I get people requesting and buying books that want me to send them signed copies from all over the world. All over the world. I've sent them to Serbia. I've sent them to Australia. I've sent them to Thailand. I've sent them to India. You name it. I've gotten requests from people. And it's because of my use of social media that allows me to reach the people that I wouldn't be able to reach if they didn't know where Pittsburgh was on a map.
Yeah, see, smart man, folks. Well, I tell you, I love when I see, people complain about the socials. No, don't complain about the socials. It's how you're gaming it. You got to game it. Don't let it game you. Come on now. All right. So I want to show off the website real quick for people that are interested in getting this book. Right, there's the website. Right, they could pick up the copies here or what?
Yeah, they can buy the copies there. My books are available pretty ubiquitously. You can buy them on my website. You can go to my publisher, which is dragonmoonpress.com. You can buy them on Barnes & Noble, Apple Books. You can go to Amazon. Wherever you find a book, you can get it. It's also available through ebooks. It's also available through audio. So if you rather listen to a book than read it, I know a lot of people, that's a real popular way that people are doing it these days. You can go and download it on Audible, Apple, iTunes, you name it, it's there.
But you're listening to the book. You're not reading the book, right? The language needs to change there. Because I had a friend of mine say, I read this book. I said, really? When did you find the time to read that? Oh, when I was driving, I just was, I got the Audible. I said, you weren't reading shit, but you were listening.
Well, the truth is, though, you get the right voice actor like I do. Victor Bavine is well known within the fantasy, adventure, and sci-fi community.
Yeah.
And people will download his stuff just for his voice. And he's a good storyteller. He brings passion to it. He feels good. Even when he's doing, female voices and stuff like that, who he is when he's in character. And you got to have the right voiceover actor for it. And Victor's my guy.
The funniest one I ever was The Watchmen. When it was the guy doing the female voices, the cartoon about the ship. And when they were doing the female, like, no, guy, damn, bro, you could have done better. That's horrible. I said, oh my God, Sonny wasn't the lady from Exorcist. All right, so lastly, what type of advice you could give to some aspiring authors, particularly those that are looking to delve into the world of epic fantasy writing, like you're doing? I mean, because you're a gamer for real. I mean, are you a dungeon master or do you just play?
I'm a DM. I've been a DM. Hey, I'm a storyteller, man. Of course, I'm a dungeon master.
He's a DM. You know what? Just for that, he'll probably murder me within the first 5 minutes of any game.
No, man, no. Everybody gets an equal chance.
All right.
But I think the advice I would give is really threefold. I mean, the first is write every day. And what I mean by that, it doesn't have to be a paragraph. It doesn't have to be any set number of chapters. Even if you're just outlining something, it keeps you in the flow of the story. It keeps your imagination growing. It does everything that you want it to do. And that's important. So you get into the habit of that. I want you to be at a point where if you're not writing, and I'm not saying vacations and holidays, everybody takes off, but there's got to be a point where you're at least doing something. And it's almost like when you miss the gym, right? You don't go to the gym, you kind of feel fat that day. You feel lazy. Mm-hmm. That's what I want you to feel like when you don't write. Secondly, iron sharpens iron. Right. So don't be afraid for constructive criticism. There are people out there that are just jerks. Right. Don't listen to the jerks, but also don't listen to your mom, because my, that's the best thing you've ever written. Of course it is. You're my mother. Right. That doesn't count. Find people that read your stuff. Those beta readers that are out there that read almost exclusively within your genre, whether it's fantasy like me or sci-fi or dystopian or horror, or wherever you are, romance. Find them because they know what they're expecting and they know what's current, and that's important. But then let them be constructively critical because there's going to be things in your drafts that just don't work. You might forget something because you're too close to it. And I'm not talking about copy line editing where you're going in there and editing grammar. Forget that. That's the easier part. I'm talking about holes in plots, or the character arc. Then they just don't get why this character is, in there, and you might have to cut them out. And I think that's number two. And number three, I mentioned a little earlier. Use the resources that are available to you.
Yes.
Whether you're an independent author or a published author, things like getting in front of your readership will increase your sales, will increase your followers, will increase your to be read list. It's going to increase your email list. All those things are important for the next sale, the next sale, and the next sale. And you do that. It's a contact sport. It's like any other sale. You do that on social media. You do that by going to events. You do that by coming on shows like this and pitching your wares and hoping people are like, hey, you know what? That's pretty cool. And I'm going to go and download those. Or I'm going to go buy those. Or I'm going to order those for Christmas for my kids. That kind of stuff. That's what you're looking for. And so those are the 3 pieces of advice I'd leave for anybody that's looking to do this.
And absolutely, with 3 pieces of advice, there you go, folks. 3 wonderful books you could purchase right now. And by the time Christmas comes, there will, in fact, be a 4th one. So that'll be stocking stuffers galore for the family to read. You have a big family, so you can share the books.
Heck yeah.
Time and make it a family event, discuss it, be constructive about this awesome series. I can't wait for the graphic novel now. I mean, can you tell us?
Don't have to wait much longer. It'll be out at late 2024, my friend. It's coming.
So it's going to be self-published, or you're going through a publisher or Kickstarter?
I'm going through Glass House in Florida. They're doing the illustration on it, and it'll go through a traditional publishing house, which I'm negotiating with now. But I already have some of the the slides and some of the frames that they're using to storyboard it, and I'm being part of the storyboarding process, which is just super cool. Exciting. Just super cool.
I'm so excited for you, JV. Excellent.
Well, thank you, sir.
I love it, folks. As I've been showing you, right below is the website, so you can buy these awesome books. But not just there, you go to Amazon, everywhere. I mean, his books everywhere. Just make it happen. jvhilliard.com. He also lists his events where he'll be showing up. I mean, what's the next one you're going to be at? Any more for this year?
Yeah, I'm going to GalaxyCon in Columbus the first weekend of December. There should be about 40 or 50,000 people there. It's going to be a lot of fun. And you can find me at the pop-up bookshop. I'll also be giving a couple of offering remarks there at a couple of classes. So if you want to learn how to write, or you want to learn how to, to write sci-fi fantasy in particular, I'm teaching a few of those classes. So I'll look to meet everybody there and come out and see me, or, you can email me at joe@jvhilliard.com. I'm pretty easy to find.
Love it, folks. You heard it here. Make sure you show the man some love. Epic fantasy right up your alley. Thank you. Again, the website one more time. It's also below. So click away, show the love, and buy. It's a pay week. Don't be lying to me. All right. So go ahead and just buy the first book. And once you do that, you're gonna get hooked like a fish. You're gonna need everything else. All right. And then you're gonna get into t-shirts, the graphic novels. You're gonna be auditioning for the film. I know that. Once you read, it's gonna just happen, right, bro?
I hope. Fingers crossed for that one.
Manifest, baby. Let's manifest. Make it magic, baby. Thank you, JV, for your time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and learning about the book. Again, show some love for independent creators like this, doing some amazing work, to keep us entertained and put a smile on our faces, all right? So with that, hasta la próxima, mi gente. Wepa!
Nice.
Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.shop and our extended podcast family over at undercover.com. And also make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.